Hey everyone, I'm Jaden,
And I'm Noah.
and we are the Super Gamer Bros. And this is the Super Gamer Bros podcast. We're just a couple of brothers who love playing games and love talking about games, so that's what we do. And today, Noah, we are actually for real 100% talking about Days Gone.
Boo.
Oh, right. Yeah, so for, anyone who listened to our last episode, we did already kind of do an introduction for this, but Days Gone released in 2019, developed by Ben Studios as a PlayStation 4 exclusive, and I would say by the general population, it is seen as one of the weaker PlayStation exclusives of that console generation, and it's divisive, I guess. Like I've heard from so many different people, different opinions about it, ranging from absolutely hating it to yeah, it was okay to it was fun to man, I loved it. As I had said in our last episode as well, this is kind of a new thing for us because normally we talk about games that we like, but both of us like. It's, very easy to do, just, ramble on for an hour about stuff we like. But with Days Gone, we face an interesting predicament where I like the game. I wouldn't say it's one of my favorites. I wouldn't say I love it, but I do like it. And Noah, would you say hate the game or is that too strong?
Hate is really strong, but I definitely wouldn't play a sequel.
All right. I think that's fair. So yeah, so instead, I thought it'd be interesting to talk about a game where, we both don't like it and kind of have more of a debate, I guess, because usually, our podcast episodes are just us agreeing with each other about what we like about a certain game. Sometimes having, little disagreements here and there about a specific thing. But this is a game that, for the most part, I like it and Noah doesn't. And I would just like to talk and see really what kind of causes those differing opinions. Noah, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, that sounds pretty good to me.
Also, want to say, that we're not game reviewers. These are just our opinions that we are sharing. If you don't agree with Noah's viewpoint or my viewpoint, hey, that's perfectly fine. It's just our opinions on this game we played, and certainly not something that you should take a
Hate
lot of
us for
stock in. Well, hate us for or take a lot of stock into. Like. But now Noah and I are going to argue about it.
debate.
Same thing. So anyway, let's just get into it with the setting. So Days Gone is a third-person action adventure game set in a post-apocalyptic open world. The player controls Deacon St. John, an outlaw turned drifter bounty hunter who prefers a life on the road compared to these wilderness encampments. The game takes place 2 years after a pandemic killed almost all of humanity and transformed millions of others into freakers, mindless zombie-like creatures that evolve quickly. And I think that the zombie-like thing is important because they are not zombies. I think Days Gone. We'll get kind of more into, especially as we talk about gameplay. But to me, most of Days Gone, it's stuff we've seen before, which I think is something that kind of holds it back in the eyes of others compared to other games. Is it does a lot of the same, like most of it is very similar to games you've played before, probably. But I think the Freakers are something that absolutely stand out. It is a very unique take on the zombie formula that, admittedly, like I had never really seen before, and I think it's really cool. I really liked the way the Freakers worked and that whole concept.
Seeing similar, I know you don't want to call them zombies, but I'm still lobbing them in with a zombie, like
No,
the
no,
overarching branch that
no.
means
That's
undead
yeah, no,
humans.
that's perfectly fine. Like you certainly can because I mean they are very much sort of zombies, but they are a different type of zombie, which
That's true.
I which is like I give them credit for that. It is a unique zombie take instead of just being humans brought back from the dead or a fungus like in The Last of Us. Obviously, they did it different, which is cool.
Yeah, I agree. For me, the zombies were the pretty much the only highlight to this game.
Mm, okay, so then talk about the map specifically. Days Gone takes place in Oregon, It might a bit be in like Washington as well. It's the Pacific Northwest, but looking at the map, I feel like it's all Oregon. And the map itself is split into 6 regions: Belknap, Cascade, Crater Lake, Iron Butte, Highway 97, and Lost Lake. I really like the map of Days Gone. I think it's very cool, very wildernessy, which I think is cool. And it's also like it's not an area, because I believe Ben Studios is based in Oregon or Washington. It's based in that area, which is why they chose to have their game set in that area. And I just think it's very cool because it's not like I personally have never been to that area of the country. I don't know a lot about it, and there's not a lot of times that you see games based off of the Pacific Northwest. So I just thought it was a cool thing.
I didn't know that actually that it was based in Oregon. Could have been any state.
I knew that
Or
because
any Midwest. I thought it was in the
um,
Midwest, honestly.
oh no, there's too many trees.
I mean, it depends where you are in the Midwest.
It's also like there's like mountains and stuff. There aren't mountains in
Appalachia.
well, that's I guess, yeah, whatever. But that's the map.
The map is, like you said, it is pretty large, and even though it is a lot of forest, it still feels quite dense. There are more than enough things to do in this game, right? Collectibles and whatnot. So it's not like one of those games where you feel like you're spending most of your time traveling between one place or another, even though the game is highly focused on the vehicle.
Yes, and random counters as well are very, very
True.
prominent. There are a lot of them. Some would argue too much, but yeah, no, it certainly. I would say if you were to start on one end of the map and you wanted to drive all the way to the other end, no fast travel, nothing. One, it would take you a while, I think, even with no interruptions. But you also would absolutely like I would say you wouldn't even be able to make it 15 minutes without being stopped by one random encounter or another. Anyway, so now obviously we're going to get into the story. So a virus has decimated the globe, turning a large portion of humanity into violent zombie-like creatures called Freakers. In near future Oregon, outlaw bikers Deacon St. John and William Boozer Gray, alongside Deacon's wife Sarah Whitaker, attempt to flee to safety. They find a Nero helicopter that has room for 2 more occupants. While Sarah boards the helicopter, Boozer is injured, and Deacon stays behind to help him after promising to reunite with his wife. 2 years later, Deacon and Boozer are working in the Pacific Northwest as mercenaries. Sarah is assumed dead because the Nero refugee camp she was believed to have been staying in was overrun by Freakers. The 2 men plan to head north in search of a better life, but they are attacked by a gang of cultists called Rippers. Boozer's arm is seriously burned in the attack, and Deacon searches for medical supplies to help him recover. Later, the 2 men learn that the Rippers have placed a bounty on their heads. Deacon sees a Nero helicopter and follows it, eventually meeting James O'Brien, the researcher who evacuated Sarah 2 years earlier. O'Brien reveals that Sarah's helicopter was diverted into to a different camp mid-flight, leaving the possibility that she is alive. Boozer's health continues to decline, and Deacon takes him to the Lost Lake camp, which is led by Iron Mike Wilcox and Raymond Schizo Sarkozy. As a doctor amputates Boozer's gangrenous arm, O'Brien contacts Deacon and offers to help him find Sarah if Deacon aids in Nero's ongoing research project. Meanwhile, Schizo is distrustful of the Ripper's uneasy alliance with Lost Lake. He makes a deal and turns Deacon over to the cult. Deacon learns the Ripper's leader, Carlos, is actually Jesse Williamson, an enemy from his motorcycle club days. Deacon escapes the Ripper's camp and breaks the dam above it, drowning Jesse and the other Rippers. Deacon realizes that Sarah, a government researcher with federal security clearance, would have been prioritized during a camp evacuation, and O'Brien confirms that she was moved to a military outpost at Crater Lake, which is now controlled by the Deschutes County militia. He warns Deacon that the Freakers are evolving, becoming more dangerous. Deacon wins over the militia's leader, Colonel Matthew Garrett, and reunites with Sarah, who is working to create a bioweapon to destroy the Freakers. Deacon and Sarah decide to obtain a DNA sequencer at her old lab, where they discover that her research was used to develop the Freaker virus. At the lab, Sarah reveals that she is working to cure the Freakers rather than destroy them. Deacon suggests they finish the cure at her new lab, but an increasingly paranoid Garrett puts Sarah into protective custody. Deacon attempts to save her, but is foiled and arrested by Schizo. A sympathetic officer, Derek Corey, frees Deacon, who returns to Lost Lake, which has been decimated by the militia. Deacon rallies the remaining members of the Lost Lake camp, and together with other camp groups, to retaliate against the militia by attacking their headquarters with a truck bomb. A Deacon kills Schizo, and Sarah poisons Garrett, ending the militia. A Deacon, Sarah Boozer, and their friends settle at Lost Lake. O'Brien contacts Deacon and reveals that Nero always knew about the virus's mutagenic effects and that he himself is a mutated freaker. He warns Deacon that Nero is coming and that nothing will stop them. And that's it. That's kind of
So they set up for a sequel?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's
they
hilarious.
Did. Yeah, I played Days Gone after I already knew that the sequel was not coming. And I will say that twist ending with O'Brien being a freaker and stuff, I totally did not see that coming. I thought it was so cool.
No, like, that is really cool. Actually, I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, it almost like it to me. It was I was like, man, this makes the entire game almost worth it to me, and boy, that makes me excited for the sequel that I know isn't coming.
Yeah, but here again is that lesson we have learned from so many films and games. Do not end on a cliffhanger banking that people are gonna, just really want that next game or movie, because it's not guaranteed. And if you close it and make it a, uniform story in whatever media it's in, then I think that actually makes it more likely that people will want a sequel.
I completely agree with you there. I think especially if it's new IP. Obviously, if you make a second game and the second game ends on a cliffhanger, then that's fine, because you obviously have already the audience from the first game who will play it, and you'll probably pick up new people along the way. So I think, going from a second to a third game is much, much more likely than going from a first to a second, especially when it comes to new IP, because, and it's one reason that I sort of don't fault companies for making 37 Call of Duty games or 10 Assassin's Creed games and stuff, is because new IPs are a gamble. They're always a gamble. You don't know if it'll be popular. You don't know if people will like it. And for a video game company, you spend millions and millions of dollars making a game, and it doesn't sell well, then that, especially if you're maybe a smaller, newer company, then that right there could be it. You could be done. There are so many development studios out there that closed because they developed, spent all this money working on a game that ended up being a flop.
It's a story as old as time.
Yeah, and it's always a shame, especially when the game is not, bad.
Yeah, that does happen.
Anyway, yeah, that's it with the story, I guess. Do you want to talk about the sequel now, or should we talk about that later? I don't know where that'll fit.
Either way.
Oh no, I guess we were already talking about it. Let's just talk about it. Okay. So speaking of, the sequel, I guess we'll just talk about it now. It is, I guess it is possible it could happen at some point in the future, but Bend Studios did bring it to Sony, and Sony denied it. So at the very least, it is not happening anytime soon, because I think like the reasons behind it that I had heard was that the game didn't sell well and critically wasn't received that well. Noah, you actually researched it, I believe.
I did research it, and Days Gone actually sold better than Ghost of Tsushima.
Oh, that is really surprising.
Yeah, in terms of actual numbers. And so I think that Sony's decision to me was purely based on the critical reception, as well as the what did you call it? Like the mixed reception.
Mixed reception.
From the general gaming audience.
Yeah, I think maybe they felt like, I guess it is possible, especially if people didn't like Days Gone, odds are they wouldn't buy a sequel. So maybe they felt like they wouldn't have enough returning customers that it would be worth it.
Right.
Yeah, there's also rumors they had them working on I think a Last of Us remake, or they wanted them to. I don't know that it's been a while since that story was relevant, but I do remember reading that was a rumor that they were maybe being told to work on that instead, and obviously they weren't happy about it. But I don't think anything was ever really confirmed with that, so there's not really much else to say. But I am surprised it actually did sell better than I thought. I didn't realize it outsold Ghosts.
Yeah, and I know I was completely shocked because I thought like I was on Reddit or something and somebody had written that like, people think Days Gone didn't sell well, but it sold more than Ghost of Tsushima. And I was like, no way. Ghost of Tsushima was incredibly popular. And I looked it up and no, I'm pretty sure on the record, Days Gone sold a couple more million copies than Ghost of Tsushima.
It was certainly interesting. Yeah, so that's the story. So let's go ahead. We'll get into the gameplay now. Actually, I did want to go back to the story, Noah, because you had told me. I was just curious about this. You had told me when you played it, you were skipping cutscenes a lot. Is that true?
It is true. Whenever I'm playing a game, especially a new IP, I will watch the first 10 maybe cutscenes. And if I think that the writing, voice acting, story, plot lines, if I think they're not great or they're phoned in or anything like that, then I just give up on it. And just for me, like this story was just so cookie cutter. Everything it happened as expected, and the only surprise was that that guy was a freaker at the end.
I will agree with you on that. I personally, I will never skip cutscenes. My first time playing through a game, if I don't like a story, but I like the gameplay enough that I play a game again, at that point I will skip cutscenes. But yeah, the first time through, I will never. But I absolutely agree with you that it took a long time, like a long time, for me to be okay with the story of this game. I certainly think the story is probably the one of the weaker, if not the weakest part of this game, in my opinion. Again, until that cliffhanger, like that cliffhanger happened, I was like, oh my god, this is the best. This is the best thing ever. But yeah, playing through the story at first, it took a long time for me to get into it, and even longer for me to like it. I guess it was certainly. I think, like you said, it was very predictable, and it really had like nothing. Again, until the last cliffhanger, nothing up its sleeve. Everything kind of happened exactly as I would have thought.
How does Days Gone play?
Well, how does Days Gone play? So Days Gone, as previously said, is a third-person game with a focus on both melee and ranged combat. I feel like looking at it from the outside in, it is more of a third-person shooter, and melee combat isn't a main focus. But I found myself using melee combat just as much as guns, and I think the melee combat it was simple, but it worked. It was a simple kind of combat system that is, I would say, very standard in kind of third person games like this, like open world third person games where you have your attack and you have a dodge, and that's basically what you do. You dodge enemy attacks and you attack back. I think
You
uh
just described most combat.
exactly. That's it. It's just like most combat. There's in terms of melee combat, there's nothing stand out about it. It's done well. Like I enjoyed doing melee combat with it, as long as you had a weapon, which I guess we'll go ahead and talk about the weapon wheel or the survival wheel as it is called in Days Gone. So you have your melee weapon, which much I would say you have very common as well. The melee weapons do have durability. They do break. You can repair them at any point if you have the like parts available, which is cool. And you can like modify them as well. All the melee weapons break except your like default melee weapon is your boot knife, because of course you have a boot knife, which is honestly stupid. I don't know if stupid is the right word. It's just weak. It's like there's no point in using it, I feel, because typically, standard enemy with a melee weapon, like one combo and they're dead, but with the knife, it's like at least 5 or 6. Like it is so laughably weak compared to every other weapon in the game.
I never partook in Melee. I treated this as a third person shooter.
Anyway, so then with your rest of your survival wheel, you have your main firearm, your sidearm, a special weapon, which be like a light machine gun, a crossbow. I think shotguns also fit in the special weapon category. I don't remember for sure, but I think they do. And then you have traps, throwables, explosives, and meds. So I'd say it's a pretty standard weapon wheel kind of system. I will say you have traps. I never used traps.
I don't
Yeah.
know. I've never played a video game that really mastered the trap because like there's games where they're really useful, like Horizon, but I still never use them.
No, you're absolutely correct. I would say 10 out of 10 games, if there's like a trap thing, I don't use it. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's I don't use it unless the game requires me to. Like using Horizon Zero Dawn as an example. Anytime I would get a new type of trap, I would do the tutorial mission for it because that would just get you XP. But then I'd never use it after that. Like even when I was playing through on the hardest difficulty, I never used them unless I had to. So that's not something I can really fault Days Gone for, but yeah, it's just that's a me thing, I guess. Anyway, so let's talk, Noah, just about the shooting. How did you feel about the shooting in general, as you mainly pretty much played this as a shooter?
Yeah, I thought the shooting was fine. It's acceptable for these type of games. And whenever you play these third-person shooters, they all feel so different. But like I said, this one is fine. You feel like your bullets do enough damage. You feel like they impact the enemies. The enemies suffer hit stagger a lot. Actually, the hit stagger and the impact, the animation of the enemies getting shot in this game is one of the best of any game I've played, to be honest. Like I said, this game does have positives. It's just overall for me, this game was not great experience.
I think also this is a good point to talk about. I like the AI interaction in Days Gone. So basically, if humans encounter freakers that are, AI is obviously not you, they will attack each other. Same with like animals, because there are animals in this game, like wolves are an enemy you kind of have to go up against a lot, which is annoying. But wolves attack other people. Wolves attack freakers. Freakers attack other people. If like freakers can hit each other and do damage to each other, always something that is cool to see in a game. I think even I had talked about when we talked about The Last of Us, how in the Left Behind DLC for The Last of Us, that's when they kind of first introduce you being able to use the zombies as a weapon against other humans. But in Last of Us, Left Behind, obviously was a short DLC where it was introduced, and then in Last of Us Part 2, I felt like it was just very like it was never used. It was a really cool feature that was never utilized. But Days Gone, I think it makes it partially, I guess, because the open world and random encounter aspect, it makes it happen much more. And I think it's really cool when it does.
I think it's cool, but it's like the trap thing where it takes so long. I just almost never did it.
I gotcha. No, it was always, a coincidence for me. Like I never planned it. It was always I'm fighting these enemies and oh hey, here are these freakers. Just aggro them on me and then just run past the people and they will attack them. And it was entirely coincidental when it happened, but it's a cool feature that I have to give them credit for because I think it worked really well. Anyway, so that's pretty much combat, I would say overall. I also want to take this point, talk about crafting. So Deacon can craft anything from melee weapons to the traps, the medicine, explosives. Obviously, this means you have to scavenge for materials wherever you can find them. And Deacon must know the crafting recipe, which he gets from story missions or finding them in bunkers in ambush camps, which we'll talk about ambush camps later. I like the crafting in Days Gone. I think you can't I would say my biggest complaint is the amount of crafting supplies you can carry. I think is too small. You can't upgrade your like storage capacity, but overall, it's a problem that I also encountered in The Last of Us a bit. Is playing on maybe like the higher difficulties of The Last of Us, where I would always have an abundance of supplies for something that I didn't need. And like, oh, I have 3 Molotov cocktails and I have the maximum amount of rags I can carry, but here's 30 rags in this one camp I'm at. And then I would later be, I have no Molotov cocktails, I have no rags, and I can't find rags to save my goddamn life. I encountered that problem a lot.
I did not use the crafting system very much, except for to craft the essential items.
Mhm.
So I also wanted to go back to this and mention this earlier. You were talking about the equipment durability system, and I am just not a fan of weapon durability in games. I understand that it's realistic. You know, if you're using something to beat somebody with, uh, for a long period of time, that thing is going to break down. But it's a video game. You know, we don't need to be that realistic. It's for fun. And having to repair my weapon every few hours is not fun for me.
I agree with you that it is an inconvenience, but I think it's fine. Like I would say, I would be happy without it, but again, it's like you said, it's making games more realistic, which in some cases I like that. Even though, even though, the melee weapons broke and stuff, I never really found myself after maybe like the initial starting point of the game when I was in the bulk of the game. I typically always had a weapon because typically, when you fight human enemies, there's always at least one guy with a weapon. And like melee combat, like I did it a lot, but never so much that I would completely break a weapon. Like usually I would always be able to repair it, or if I didn't think it was worth it to repair, I would just, pick up another weapon.
Right, no, in this game I didn't use melee that much and I didn't have to repair weapons or anything. I just wanted to avoid all of it. But I'm saying like, most of those systems I've ever used end up being way more tedious and defeat the purpose of being put in the first place.
Mm. Yeah, I get you. I get you. It's certainly, I think there is a balance to it that is very precarious. And but I think Days Gone kind of manages that well. Yeah, that's that. So also, stealth is a big aspect of Days Gone. There are a lot of enemies and only one of you. Suppressors are very helpful, but they break like almost everything else. And you cannot craft suppressors, but you can find them in car engines mostly because Days Gone really hammers home the vehicles of the post-apocalyptic world. Like there are a lot of vehicles, a lot of places, and almost all of them have something in the trunk, in just the like back seat, in the hood that you can find and use. And with these suppressors, they also come in three sizes. The small ones for your sidearms, medium for primaries, and large for special weapons. I like the suppressor system in Days Gone. Because basically, you're just taking stuff from car engines. I like the fact that there are different sizes that that you need to find the right size for a specific weapon. I think that's awesome. I thought it was cool. I think
I thought it was far too tedious.
yeah. I think they should have lasted a bit longer on your weapon. I felt like they were too short lasting, but yeah, I thought it was cool. I especially liked the fact that different sizes, are needed. Like you can't put this super big, giant, whatever the hell you just pulled out of this engine on your tiny pistol. I thought that was a cool detail to add in there.
I agree that it's cool, but they lasted so shortly on the weapons that I just found myself giving up on suppressors.
Yeah, no, I absolutely understand that. It can certainly be annoying, especially if you're trying to take out a large group of enemies silently. And I guess for me, it wasn't as much an issue because I would typically, sneak up behind an enemy and just take them out physically from behind if I was stealthing. Anyway, now we're going to talk about the next very large, honestly, maybe the largest part of the game, the bike. So the drifter bike is the primary mode of transport in Days Gone. The bike is crucial to surviving in the world as it allows the player to quickly escape from situations where they will be overwhelmed, such as when unprepared to face an alerted horde. The bike will require refueling and repairs as the situation arises. If the bike takes too much damage, its performance will be severely hindered. Too much damage will render it immobile. If the bike runs out of fuel, players may walk it along. If players manage to go to a hill, they will be able to freewheel. What's the word? Like go in neutral and what do you call that? Idling.
Yeah.
Like idle and travel, down a hill, whatever. Though this only lasts as long as the momentum can be maintained. The bike needs to be in working condition and have sufficient fuel for fast travel. Additionally, saddlebags can be added to the bike so you can carry extra ammunition and allow you to restock without having to return to a camp, because that is an annoying thing that you have to do. And the bike serves as a save point, so you can save the game at any time, anywhere, so long as the player is not too close to alerted enemies. I love the fact that the bike serves as a save point. I really, really like that.
Yeah, it's genius.
Um,
The bike mechanic in this game is, to me, the standout.
I agree with you. Yeah, you talk about it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so for me, we talked about this just on our recent episode, Mad Max, where you discussed refueling in games, and you said you hated it when you have to do it too much, but in Mad Max, you never had to do it. But I felt in this game, in Mad Max, you never had to do it, so it might as well not even be a mechanic, right? But in this game, I felt like they hit the perfect balance. Like you were never too far away from somewhere you could refuel. Um, you, I liked the fact that you could only fast travel as far as your fuel would take you, and the fact that you could idle down hills. I mean, I only did it like once, but it was just a really cool aspect to put in the game. The bike itself, it handled a little rough, and the fact that the terrain is so dense, sometimes it can be kind of hard, especially if you have to like turn around or you're driving through the forest or something. Because whenever I'm like going to a waypoint in a game, I'll eventually give up on the road and just try to drive in a straight line to wherever I'm going. And in this game, it was hard.
Overall, I think the bike is fine. I have to disagree with you and say, I did not like several aspects that you said you do like, which specifically is around the refueling. It sucks. I hated it. I think, obviously you can upgrade your bike, but, doing that, getting the money and the trust, talk about that later, necessary to upgrade it takes a long time. And I feel like, especially the fuel it's too little at the start of the game. I hated it. I can very vividly remember one point where I ran out of gas and I was nowhere near anywhere that I could refuel. And so I was like running around trying to find a gas can for like 30 minutes. Like I'm in this little town, these buildings, like running around trying to find this fuel. And at one point I was just like, what is this? What am I doing? Why am I doing this? This is stupid. Like, this is stupid. I do not want to spend 30 minutes hunting for a fuel can to move my goddamn bike. And I just hated it. Again, by the point, like when you get the maximum level fuel tank, by that point it doesn't matter because obviously you can refuel at camps. And when you have the maximum, you can literally fast travel from like the farthest distance that you can possibly fast travel because I tested it from like literally one end of the map all the way to the other and still have like a quarter tank of gas left. So it very much is not an issue when you get to that point, but it takes a long time to get to that point. And I just did not like that aspect of it. Like, trust me, when we were talking about it in Mad Max, I was thinking it when I said, oh man, I hate this in games. I was thinking of Days Gone when I said it.
That's funny because I never ran out of gas.
I certainly would run low sometimes because it's just like it's something that you don't think about. I didn't think about it. Like I don't want to have to think about it.
No, I would stress about it like I do in my actual car and be like, oh shit, it's halfway. Gotta look, keep an eye out for the gas stations.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. I just didn't think about it, and like eventually, I did. I learned, and I would, keep an eye on it. But again, by the time I learned, I already had like a large enough fuel tank that it was already not that much of an issue. And yeah, I mean I just not a fan. Also with the bike taking damage, I think it's a little too fragile,
I agree.
and I don't think that's something you can you upgrade the durability?
I'm not sure, but does it take damage when you ram into things?
Yes, it takes damage with
Yeah,
anything.
that's the problem I had.
It takes damage if it falls over. That's
Yeah, I
like,
think it should only take damage if it's struck by an enemy.
yeah, yeah. I mean, even not it can take damage when you ram into an enemy, when you ram into a tree, when it falls over, I guess, but not as much as it does.
Yeah, but it's
Um,
the same problem, like you had the same problem in Mad Max, like when you're ramming your car into something, why does your car take damage?
no, I don't have a problem that it takes damage. It's that it takes that much damage. Like if it took
Right.
like all the same thing I feel like applies to Mad Max as Days Gone. If both the like in both games, if your vehicle took half as much damage, 37% less damage than it did, it probably would not have been an issue for me. It's just like, with the motorcycle, it's like you ram into, like, if I'm just riding, through a forest, there's a lot of trees, you're trying to weave and shit. And then, you hit one or you hit something and, whatever. And all of a sudden my bike is now at like 60% durability. And I'm like, well, okay, because it affects the performance of the bike, which again, realistic. I don't hate that it affects the performance of the bike because I appreciate that aspect of the realism. I just think it gets damaged too easily. Yeah, and that's that.
That's the bike.
That's the bike. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have anything else to say on the bike.
No, that is where you spend most of the game.
Yeah. All right. So now we'll move on to the kind of additional gameplay mechanics. First is the storylines. I just thought this was a cool thing. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a gameplay mechanic because it's not something you kind of actively use or do. But there's the storylines. They're the different story threads of the game. Typically, they are tied to a specific person that Deacon interacts with, and completing story missions and side missions completes each storyline, and most overlap. Like typically, if you do a mission, it'll say like, oh, it advances this storyline and this storyline, whatever. I thought that was a cool way to kind of map out the story.
Is it easy to follow?
I would say so. It's like weird at first because I had never encountered something like it, and I was like, hold on, what is this? Let me pause and try to figure what I'm looking at here. But yeah, I thought it was cool. It's just like it basically, as I said, most of them are tied to a specific person. So it's like, I know I'm not done. Sometimes I would check it and be like, oh, I'm not done interacting with, this guy because this storyline that is tied to him is not complete yet. Which is, I think it's a good, it made it very easy to gauge progress and kind of figure out how complete the game is. Like it was especially useful after beating the main story because there are, I believe, 4 cutscenes that take place after the main story, kind of like 4 little epilogue cutscenes that complete these different storylines. That if I didn't have the storylines and didn't know that those were not complete yet, like hadn't noticed, I might have just turned the game off and never seen them. So yeah, I just like that. It was cool. It allowed me to gauge where I was at and stuff, which I always like. I like games that track your progress because I like knowing how far I've gone and how much further I have to go.
Yeah, that's fair.
So then we've got encampments. Encampments are like the main bases of the game. This is where you are completely safe from attack. You can repair and upgrade your bike, buy new weapons. You can sell freaker ears and animal parts. And upgrades, this is something to note, upgrades and weapons are locked behind levels of trust. Now, what is trust, Noah?
Simply put, how much the leader of a specific camp trusts you. You can increase trust by sending survivors to a certain camp, clearing out hordes, ambush camps, and doing missions for the leaders. There are 3 levels of trust.
That is correct. I think doing the building up trust, I think, is a little slow because it's like a point system, and everything you do gets you some amount of points. And like to get trust level 1 is 5,000, to get level 2 is 12,500, and level 3 is 25,000. It really just exponentially ramps up with the amount of points you need.
That's insane.
And I honestly can't remember. I think the counter might reset when you get to the next level. I don't remember. Like you have to get 5,000, and then it's not like, oh, you just need an additional 7,500. I think it is. You need to like start from 0 again. Don't quote me on that because I'm not sure. I just as someone who got the trophy for getting max trust with every encampment, it is certainly something that takes longer and is in a way not necessarily worth it for like the earlier camps because by the time you can really get your trust up to like level 3 at the very first camp and get the best stuff at the very first camp, well, the camp that you unlock farther in the game has better stuff at a lower trust level. So why, like, what's the point other than completion to do it? But overall, I like the system. I thought the system made sense. It's also, it's one of those games where everybody knows everybody. So like, obviously there is like a 2-year gap between the end of the game. The like start of the game where the like infection is broken out and where the game takes place. And it's like, Deacon knows everybody because he's a drifter and travels around, which is a great way, a very easy way in your story to have everybody know who they're talking to and stuff, and already have kind of established relationships with people because, he was a mercenary, did work for him. That's it. Like they all know who he is.
That is a cool aspect.
Oh, also, I didn't put a thing for this, but speaking of animal parts, hunting is a thing in this game. I never did it. I would say so many open world games that include wilderness kind of vibe include hunting, and in 9 out of 10 of those games, it's not implemented very well. And Days Gone is one of those 9. It's like it's not really worth your time to do. No? Noah? No, you're still in the meeting. You okay?
Sorry, I was grabbing something to eat.
Gotcha.
What were you just talking about?
Hunting, it's not great.
Oh yeah, no, I absolutely never hunted.
Yeah,
I
like
agree with you. In
Mhm.
most games, hunting, it just is not implemented well. It seemed like an afterthought. They're like, wait, it's the forest. Shouldn't there be like deer and rabbits and stuff? And maybe you could kill them and pick up a pelt.
Yeah.
It's never really more than that.
Yeah, and it's just not worth it. Like you can sell them for money, but you don't really get a lot. And especially like later in the game when things cost more, it's just like just do a mission and you'll get way more than you could hunting. It's not worth your time. I think there's like a trophy to sell like 5 animal parts, whatever, to like one store. But other than that, that's 5. That's nothing. Like the only time I ever got any pelts was from wolves, and that's because wolves attack you, so you kind of have no choice but to kill them. Yeah, like I never went out of my way for hunting. It's like you said, most games include it as an afterthought, and I just think I didn't need to though. Like just maybe not.
Yeah, let's start a hate train on wolves because they have definitely become the most annoying video game in like the last 2 decades.
Like most annoying
The
video
most
game
annoying
enemy.
video game enemy,
Yeah.
yeah. That's like just a base enemy,
Yeah,
Because
very
whenever it's a group of wolves, they just have a weird attack pattern. They always do good damage, and
Yeah.
it's like, God, why?
Yeah,
There aren't
very
that many wolves.
yeah, very they're especially in wilderness type games like this, very common to have wolves be a type of enemy that attacks you and always attacks you in groups. Which, I mean, I guess that's what normal wolves would do in real life, but it's fine. Okay, now we get into kind of the bulk of what you do in your free roaming with infestations. So these are focused zones where there are several freaker nests. You must burn the nest and kind of clear out freakers in that area to clear up the infestation zone. And as a special note, infestation zones block fast travel. So if you want to be able to fast travel from one part to the next, but there's an infestation zone in the way, you have to clear it out before you can fast travel. Overall, I liked the infestation zones. They are very annoying early on in the game when you don't have a lot of supplies, but to be fair, everything in the game is very annoying when you're at the beginning and you don't have a lot of supplies, weapons, and stuff. But overall, I like the infestation zones. Again, it's part of that whole uniqueness with the freakers, where like freakers are a cool aspect of the game. Talk about freakers now, I guess, is freakers are nocturnal. So during the day, they're less likely to be seen around the world. And most of the time, they're holed up in buildings or dark places, like their nests. I thought it was just a really cool thing. I don't like the fact that they block fast travel. That's the only aspect of these infestation zones that I don't like, because if I want to fast travel, let me fast travel, and end of story. But yeah, I thought the concept was cool, and I honestly wish there were more infestation zones in the game, because I really had fun taking them out.
I agree. I thought the concept was entertaining. I do buy into the whole culture of the freakers. Like, to me, that was the best part of the story. And if the game featured more of that, like if they pushed that all up and didn't focus so much on the history, trying to build that history of Deacon and his people, then maybe it could have been a different turnout.
Also, I guess, we don't typically talk about enemy types in games anymore. That's something, if you listen to our earlier episodes, which don't listen to our earlier episodes, is something we would take time to focus on. But
Don't say that.
what?
Tell people not to listen to our earlier episodes.
I'm just saying I wouldn't.
They're retro.
Retro. Is that a thing? Never mind. But I did want to talk. There are kind of the special types of freakers. There's the screamer, the breaker, and the reacher. Do I have that right? Or it might be. Oh no, I think there's a
I
rager.
didn't know there were different types.
Well, I just want to talk about the three special types because they're a small point of annoyance in the game to me. Yeah, breaker, reacher, or rager are kind of the main three special types. You encounter them all in missions for the first time. Like a rager is just a super. It's like the tank in Left 4 Dead, super buff, a lot of health, whatever. The reacher is kind of a weird looking one, like with like white hair for some reason, and the breaker is the breaker. Not talk about them too much. They all appear in story missions as like a kind of boss of sorts, like a mini boss. Like typically the first time you take one on, it has a health bar. You have to deal with it. Usually it's like a one-on-one fight, and it's like, oh man, what's this thing? And then after that, they just appear in the map randomly, and you just have to fight them.
That's annoying.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had those mixed up. The Rager is a bear, a zombified bear. The Breaker is the buff tank one, and then Reacher is still the one with white hair. Yeah, you encounter them all through story, and then they just appear after that randomly, and that's where I was annoyed with them because, like, I guess specifically with the Reacher, which is like super fast, like that's kind of its thing. It's super fast for some reason. And it's like a mutation, but it's like a new mutation that you literally find like what I guess you could call as the first one, and then all of a sudden they just appear randomly in the world. It's just like, why? I don't want that. Because there's still obviously stronger versions of enemies, and every single time after encountering them in story, if I encountered them, I would just run from them because they're just such a hassle to deal with. I don't know, like
Yeah,
that's like,
that's what I would do.
yeah, like those are the only aspects of the freakers as a whole that I did not like, was those special types that you would encounter randomly after encountering them in the story. I just did not like that aspect of the freakers. Anyway, so moving on to like your human enemies, you have the ambush camps. These are basically enemy camps. They're full of bandits who attack people and steal from them and stuff. They're enemy bases. See them in 1,000 games. You clear out all the enemies. Doing so lifts fog from the map because the map is fogged over, which sucks. I didn't like that, but I don't like that in any game. Clears the fog from the map. Also, each camp contains a bunker where you find a crafting plan. So, we talked about crafting earlier. He can only craft if he has the plans to stuff. And through the story, you get all your kind of necessary plans, but the bunker is where you find the cool kind of bonus random weapon plans.
Yeah, nothing to add there. You basically covered it.
Yeah.
I mean, they're camps.
Yeah. I thought they were fine. They were fun. And yeah, that's it.
No, this is definitely a mechanic I feel games have mastered, is the enemy camp.
Yeah, I agree. I can't think of a game at the top of my head right now that did that in a way that I did not like. And then you have marauder camps. They're basically the ambush camps, but they're smaller. And typically it's just like they're typically smaller, and there's nothing really extra in the marauder camps. They're just slightly different. Like in terms of, like, I guess the factions of people, because typically marauder camps are anarchists or rippers who are basically anarchists, but not. They're different, and that's it. Yeah, they're just smaller versions of those.
Right.
And then Noah, why don't you talk about the Nero checkpoints?
So Nero checkpoints, they are a traffic checkpoint set up by Nero before the events of the game. All of them are abandoned, and in each is a main trailer which you can find an injector, which is used to increase health, stamina, and focus. You can also find crafting supplies and med kits as well as a Nero recorder, which I'm sure is a collectible.
That is correct. I like the Nero checkpoints. They're basically kind of like little puzzles. Again, yeah, it's funny just talking about, like, just even thinking about Mad Max and Days Gone, a lot of similarities between the two, because they're sort of like the balloons in Mad Max, for the fact that typically with these, you have to find a gas can to then put gas in the generator, turn on the generator, and it allows you to go into the trailers, because they are like I guess like electronically locked. And yeah, I just like, they were fun. They're like sort of little puzzles in the game, and they were just kind of a nice break from everything, because typically there are not a lot of freakers in them initially, maybe like just 3-4 that you have to clear out, so it's typically a break from enemy fighting where you're just finding this stuff. Also, nice little, I guess, aspect of it, you have to find like these sirens and destroy them, or else they will attract freakers when you turn the power on. Yeah, just they were a fun, like, little change of pace, I felt like.
Yeah, and again, it involved the freaker interactions.
Uh-huh.
Because with the sirens, like you said, I at first thought it was super annoying, and then I was like, oh, that's actually like a really cool mechanic.
Yeah.
And I thought it was implemented well because you can disable them before you turn on the power, and it's really not that hard.
Yeah, you just have to find all the sirens. And after it is, like, the sirens do go off, you can find them and destroy them. Because you can fast travel to Nero checkpoints. This game, I think, opposite to Mad Max, you can fast travel pretty much anywhere. You can fast travel to Nero checkpoints, and you can rest, like go and sleep, which, heals you and stuff, but you can't sleep if enemies are nearby. So, and if you fast travel and there are enemies there, it can be sort of annoying when you're trying to, load in from fast travel and get out if there's a bunch of freakers around. Then you have the Nero research sites. They're basically like mini version of the checkpoints. Usually you find, like, it's typically like a crashed helicopter. There's an injector to upgrade yourself, and then typically a recorder, but that's all there is. This isn't like the checkpoints where you have to power anything up. It's usually just a box and a recorder.
Lame.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought they were fine. Some of them really, really annoying to get to. Like, I specifically remember one that you had to, like, jump, because obviously your bike can't go in the water. But you had to, like, jump, like, off a ramp onto an island, jump off that island onto a second island where the research site was. Because Deacon can swim, but I don't think you could swim to this island and get to the research site. I think you, like, had to do it with your bike, because it's like a kind of like it's not like a steady incline up this island. It's just like a plateau. Yeah. And I remember spending probably like 15-20 minutes just on this one checkpoint trying to get to it. It was just really annoying. But overall, they were fine. Now, we'll talk about one of my favorite aspects of the game, hordes. Noah, what are hordes?
Hordes are very large groups of freakers. It takes a lot of work to take them out, and especially at the beginning, it seems like an insurmountable obstacle in your path. You could say these are sort of the bosses in the game. I thought the horde mechanic was really nicely implemented because, I mean, it's been tried a couple of times, but it hasn't really been done well. But in this game, you can do a lot to manipulate how the horde works, and just the sheer amount of freakers in a horde is so intimidating when you first come across one in the wild. I actually avoided them most of the time.
Oh, I mean, absolutely same. Like, I don't think, because, when you first start the game, they are like, everyone knows, like, oh, hordes, you don't mess with hordes, like, you'll die. Like, nobody has ever, taken down a horde before. And even I can remember very early on in the game accidentally stumbling on a horde, and man, that horde just wrecked me. Then, as part of story, you get kind of equipment that can help you take out hordes. Very kind of useless, honestly. And you take out 2 hordes for the story. And honestly, those are by far the 2 biggest and hardest hordes to take out in the game. Like, I did the first horde as part of the story, and it was awful. I hated it. there is like a visible health bar for the horde that, obviously every freaker you kill takes it down. And I like struggled. I was basically just like running around buildings, running back and forth. And whenever I had enough space, I would turn around and fire my gun and take out a few, and then I'd have to just keep running again. It's certainly, as you said, it's very cool how you can manipulate the environment around you to kind of split the horde into groups, or kind of get some space between the two of you, or just kind of anything like that. The horde, it works so well and realistically. Like, I have to imagine that there is a very significant part of the development time of this game just perfecting the horde mechanism. And I have to say, I think they pretty much nailed it. Yeah, but anyway, yeah, the story hordes, very hard, very annoying. But then encountering them randomly in the wild, I found they were a lot easier to manage and a lot more fun. Like, doing it for story, I hated it, and I thought, man, like, I don't want to have to take out hordes in the open world. That's going to suck. But it really didn't, because they were always smaller, and typically where they are, so you can kind of find where their place is. You can plant traps. Probably the only time I used traps in the game, I think. And I would set up explosives and stuff, and you get the horde to come out, blow up a lot of them as you can at once, and then the rest are chasing you. You just gotta outrun them and gun them. Yeah, I really like that aspect of the game. I thought it was very cool.
Yeah, to me, this was the highlight. This and the bike.
Anyway, so now we'll just talk very quickly. Probably should have talked about this earlier. The skill tree. Obviously, game has level up system, has skills. There are 3 categories in the skill tree: melee, ranged, and survival. And there are 15 skills in each category. Each group is split into 5 levels of skills, and you unlock each set of 3 every 2 skills you get in that category. So basically, you have like your level 1 skills. When you get 2 of those, you unlock your level 2 skills. And then when you get 2 skills, you can either get, another level 1 skill, or both in level 2. You unlock level 3. And then, so it's like, yeah, it's like a building thing. I really liked the way that worked. I liked it because, one, each category only affected that, like, the category it's in terms of the amount of skills you need to unlock another level. And also the fact that each time you unlocked a level, you weren't really limited to, one choice. You still had 3 choices every time you unlocked a level, which I thought was a cool and better way to do the kind of tiered skill system than it's done in most games, where you have your branching paths, and it's like, if you want this skill, you have to get the 3 skills above it, even if you don't want those skills. But with Days Gone, you can pick and choose the skills you want, and you're less likely to have to settle for a skill you don't want to unlock a skill you do, if that makes sense.
It does. It's a great system.
Yeah, I did like that system. I do think Days Gone is probably, as far as I can think, again, kind of opposite to Mad Max, where you can get Road Warrior rank very quickly. In Days Gone, it takes a lot to unlock 45 skills. Like, if you're going for the platinum, unlocking all 45, so getting to, I guess, level 45, is going to be the very last trophy you get, which I don't like that. Because it is one of, like, it, that's how much experience you need to get everything, to get all the skills, is by the time you have all the skills, you will have done everything else in the game. So what's the point? Again, other than, completion, like trophies. Because, by the time I unlocked skill 45, I had done everything else. And it's like, cool, now I have this new skill that I'm not going to use because I'm turning off the game now because I'm done with it.
Right.
Probably
we've always said it's better if you can, A, unlock all the skills, B, unlock all the skills before you finish the story.
Yeah, like, I think at no more than 80%, no later than 80% through the game, you should be able to get your last skill. Again, because, like, I guess hypothetically that's something that is maybe encouraging different playthroughs to pick different skills, but, to get maybe different skills earlier. But yeah, I don't want that. I don't want to do that. If you have to play through a game, especially a longer game, multiple times to be able to get the full experience, then it's that to me is a detriment.
No. I I agree with you. It's just it highly depends. Like it depends on the game, but you did specify long. So yeah, I guess if you have to replay a long game for something small like that,
Yeah, well, I mean, to me, it's kind of the same as like any games that have a complete New Game Plus trophy, which I mean, Days Gone doesn't. I mean, it had New Game Plus added, but for the Platinum, you don't have to play New Game Plus. But just the fact that I have to play so much of the game, and also, I guess I would say the biggest criminal in that kind of aspect of having to play the game more than once to get everything, in my experience, is The Last of Us and The Last of Us Part 2. Because again, like I played through The Last of Us on the easiest difficulty, like because I was wanting to get the trophy for getting all the upgrades and stuff, and looking in everywhere, every nook and cranny, everywhere, unlocking all the bonus, shiv doors, scouring the game obviously adds a decent chunk of time to your playthrough, and doing all that and still missing like 4 or 5 upgrades. Anyway, so now we'll talk very quickly about the collectibles. There are really 3 collectibles that Jaden deems as collectibles, because the game tracks other things as collectibles, but to me the big 3, there's the tourism collectibles, which are basically, you're in Oregon, a very beautiful nature place, a lot of, obviously I believe a lot of tourism in that area. And so
if you've
basically,
never been there,
well, I did, in 5th grade, I did a report on Oregon.
oh, okay, I didn't know that. Continue.
Yeah, that's why I know, that's all I know about Oregon. I did that report. That's why I know what Crater Lake is. And trust me, I was oohing at Crater Lake because I was like, I did a report on that. So basically, you go to kind of like monuments, whether or not they are real, I can't say for all of them, but some of them I do know are real. And, typically it's like finding like a little plaque, like you would find if you're going through any kind of tourist
Like a hike
heavy
or
area.
something.
Yeah, like here's a plaque explaining why this rock is important and stuff. Standard kind of tourism stuff. And then you have, I forget exactly what they're called, but they're like character collectibles. Most of these are found in camps, and typically they're collectibles that kind of reveal, I guess, a little bit about the backstory of the camp leaders and people that are like the characters of the game. I liked them because 1, they're typically not hard to find, and 2, they just reveal more about the characters, which is something that I always love. And I like when collectibles do it because it gives you an extra reason to find collectibles, and then you don't have to take story time explaining the backstory of these characters. Oh, and then the 3rd, obviously the Nero recorders, Nero data. It explains you kind of, through these kind of different Nero employees, whatever, learn about the past and
You learn about the freakers, right?
Yeah, you learn about the freakers. You learn about, the like last few days before everything was just completely destroyed, as the infestation was growing and growing.
Yeah, those are the only collectibles I liked.
Yeah, they're fun. They're fun.
And you knew where they all were.
Yeah, pretty much. Like if you go to all the Nero research sites, Nero checkpoints, I'm pretty sure you get all of them. Might have been missing a few, but I like them. It's fun, like hearing literally firsthand accounts from these people as the world is going to shit. Anyway, let's talk about notable trophies. So there are 3 trophies I just want to talk about. 1, lend me your ears. Collect 989 Freaker ears. The reason it is such a random number is wherever Ben Studios is located, that's their area code. I think I read that online. I did not double check it because
Yeah, sure, that checks.
Yeah, I did not double check it because I was like, that sounds about right. It's a lot, but it's not, because especially like if you take down a horde, you'll get like minimum 90 to 100 plus Freaker ears. It's certainly something that at the beginning seems like, oh my god, that's a lot, but you will get that with no problem. And then farewell drift. Accumulate 10 minutes of drifting time while on your bike.
I did this on accident.
I hate these trophies. We talked about that when we talked about Batman Arkham Knight, because Arkham Knight has one. I don't drift a lot. I don't like drifting mechanics in games. really, period. That's one of the reasons that I am not a fan of kart racers, because kart racers a lot of times depend on you drifting, and it's just I just don't like it. And then the last one, go kick rocks. Knock down 12 anarchist cairns, Cairns. I don't necessarily know how to pronounce that word.
Yeah, it's Cairns.
Yeah.
It's also a thing in Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Is it just a stack of rocks?
Yeah, it's just a stack of rocks, and it's just a random stack of rocks that you find. There's like no tracker on the map for them. I don't know for sure if they count as a collectible actually in the game itself. I don't think it does. I don't think it tracks it, which makes it even more annoying. But it's literally just you have to go find random stacks of rocks to kick, and it was the most annoying trophy in the game, because it probably took me around an hour, because there are anarchist camps you take out. There's a small amount, but usually, you'll find a couple in those. But even then, it's a lot of like, looking at a guide, watching a video, whatever, where they pinpoint this location on the map. And so I go to that location on the map, and then I still have to look around for it because it's just a small pile of rocks. Like, no indication that it's there, nothing until you're close enough where the prompt comes up for you to kick it over.
That's annoying.
Yeah, a stupid trophy, a very stupid trophy. Anyway, that's the trophies. Now we'll move on to our questions. Noah, favorite moments?
My favorite moments are actually the bike mechanics. Riding the bike, it didn't feel the best I've ever felt in a video game, but it was fine. And it was the best way to get around. I mean, when I wasn't on the bike, I felt like I was just so slow.
No, I completely agree with that. Also, we did not talk about it very much. We skimmed over it, but upgrading the bike I liked. You could change the color of the bike, which was cool, and just the actual upgrading, it very much, you felt every upgrade as you upgraded it. You felt the handling get better. You felt the speed get faster, the nitro, everything. It is certainly a good upgrade system.
Yeah, your favorite moment?
Yeah, my favorite moment, the horde fights. I absolutely loved them. Like, that's pretty much the last thing I was doing to get experience, to get that last skill point, whatever, like the last few skill points I needed after beating the story. And it was just fun. I absolutely loved it. I would I loved hunting them. I loved fighting them. Again, the ones, if you're playing through the story and you encounter the hordes and you think, man, this is the worst thing ever, the ones you just find free roaming are much easier and much more fun to deal with. Noah, miscellaneous things that you liked that we maybe didn't talk about.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was unmuted, but I actually was muted. Sorry. No, I don't have any miscellaneous things.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So then what we didn't like about the game, Noah?
Yeah, just the story. Everything
gotcha.
else was actually fine.
Hmm.
Like, not anything to write home about. There's still issues in the gameplay for me, but the story was just lackluster.
So I'll say just real quick, the gas thing, we already talked about that. This game, Days Gone, has some of the worst characters in any game I've ever played. Specifically, the two that I'm thinking about, Schizo, he was just annoying. I just did not like him at all. He was like a white gangster kind of character, and I just thought he was dumb. I hated him. And two, Deacon St. John might be the worst protagonist I have ever played as in any game ever. He's just a dick. That's it. And I hated playing as him. He was just such a dick.
Yeah,
Like,
I agree with that, actually.
He was very much one of those, like, oh, he's got a gruff exterior but a heart of gold characters. And I'm like, you put a little too much into the gruff exterior. Like, he's a dick to everybody because, his wife died. And hey, well, he thought she died. That sucks. I am sure. But I feel like you get a lot less
Antagonistic?
No, like, I give you a lot less.
Thorny?
I'll say, like, benefit of the doubt. I give you a lot less benefit of the doubt for losing your wife in a post-apocalyptic game where literally, like, everybody has lost people, every single person. And so it's like, you got to realize that, when
Yeah, and he's the only one who's a dick.
yeah, like everyone else is like, especially at first, usually mean to him, but that's because they know him and they know he's a dick. And yeah, like he just yeah, just annoying. How much of a dick he is. Like specifically, it annoyed me how much of a dick he was to O'Brien because him and O'Brien, like he's always like yelling at O'Brien, cursing at him, just giving him his 2 cents, whatever, and just being a jerk to him. And it's like, dude, this guy is helping you. Like he's trying to find out what happened to your wife. Yeah, he's asking stuff for you in return, but come on, that's just the dude is literally your only hope of find. Even not necessarily you hate the guy, who cares? He's only helping you because you're helping him. But he's also the only chance you have of finding your wife. Maybe be a little nicer. Like I would, even if I'm like swallowing my hate to do it, this is the only way I could find my wife. I'll be nice to this guy.
Yeah. No, Deacon sucks.
Yeah. And then last thing about Deacon is he always puts his 2 cents in about everything, which got annoying to me rather quickly. Like there's one character who broadcasts radio messages. He's one of the camp leaders, and he like every once in a while this radio message will broadcast out, and every time it ends, Deacon will comment something about it. And pretty much with everything, like when you encounter a bandit camp, he'll be like, "Oh, you guys want to attack people? Not if I have anything to say about it." Like he always just throws his 2 cents. Like whenever someone on the radio contacts him and he talks to them, when the conversation ends, he will say to himself a comment about them, about them being an asshole or something. And I'm like, it happens too much. I just did not. I hated that.
Like he's become his own narrator.
Yeah. And there were moments that I was like, okay, he's not bad. But then other moments that I just was like, man, I just hate playing as this guy. And then we'll go ahead and move on to replayability. I think Days Gone could be the poster child for the Super Gamer Bros motto, beat and delete. This is a beat and delete. I played this game. It was fine. I will never play it again.
Yeah, obviously this is a beat and delete, but we've said this is usually a textbook thing for these like, story-based single player games. They don't really have too much replayability these days.
Yeah, but even then, like there are some games that I'm like, yeah, maybe I'll play this game again if I have free time, whatever. But I don't think Days Gone is not one of those. It is not. Anyway, so then our final thoughts about it. I will say I think Days Gone is fine. I think the biggest thing to me about it is an open world third person action adventure, and other than the freakers and their kind of unique traits, there is nothing stand out about it. Like it does all these things that other open world action adventure third person games do, but it doesn't do them better than any other game. I would say for most of those it's very average. And yeah, that's it. Like I think maybe a big problem a lot of people have with it is that fact that other than the freakers, it does not really do anything to kind of distance itself from other games of this similar type. And but also the things that it does the same, it doesn't do better. Like if it was, the exact same as every other open world game, but man, the shooting, like, I don't know what it is, but the shooting, it feels so great. Or like the melee combat feels so great. The stealth, any aspect of it that feels better than the rest. I think it would be, fine, but it isn't better than the rest in any of those things, which I think is just kind of something that makes it what it is.
Yeah, a little bland, maybe.
I mean, like I said, I liked it. I had fun with it. I thought, it was fine. I can see playing through it why other people would probably not have a positive reaction to it. Cool, and that Days Gone. Noah, did you have any final thoughts?
I am among the people who are happy that there is not a sequel planned. I think this studio does good work, and I just want to see them do something else.
Yeah, I'll say if there was a sequel that was coming out, I certainly would play it, but the fact that there isn't is not like a big heartbreak to me. Anyway, now we're going to move on to the indie bit, the bit where we talk about indie games.
Yay!
Today, we are talking about The Unfinished Swan. So we're going to go ahead and flashback here to 2012, 2013, and a young Noah and Jaden with their PlayStation 3. And kind of when we first figured out what indie games were, because I remember there was like a PlayStation Awards thing where they had these themes for your PS3 you could do that were based around different awards. And there was Best Indie Game, and we didn't know what an indie game was. And at the time, the big game everybody was talking about, I think PewDiePie had started playing it, and like everyone was talking about it, was Journey. Very, very popular indie game. And around that time, like coming out, I don't know how close together, but I always lumped the two of them together in my head because it was also a game that I think was up for like the Best Indie Game award, was The Unfinished Swan. And speaking of, back in the day when game demos were a big thing, we had the demos for Journey and The Unfinished Swan. And you could say that those two games, I think, are absolutely responsible for us getting into indie games. And I think even Journey, especially, I imagine, is responsible for the widespread attention and the indie game market being what it is today. At least to me, it feels like that, because I never heard anything about indie games before Journey and The Unfinished Swan. Noah, would you say that's accurate?
I would actually say that's accurate. Not necessarily, I wouldn't tie it to like one game, but it was definitely that like time period where all these were getting a lot of attention.
Yeah. And I think that's also when like Sony and Xbox themselves, the companies actually started really supporting indie devs and pushing for indie games because of they realized with, I feel like, Journey, especially, how popular those games could be. And we had the demos for Journey and The Unfinished Swan. The Unfinished Swan, especially, I played that demo dozens and dozens of times. It wasn't that long. I thought it was cool. I played it a lot. And like I liked it so much that I bought The Unfinished Swan and I bought Journey because I wanted to play through those games. And then about 10 years later, I finally played through The Unfinished Swan for the first time. Because I absolutely, despite the fact that we bought it, never played it until I said it was going to be an indie bit for our podcast.
That's funny. I never played it either.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's fine. You didn't buy it. I did. Anyway, so that's the story of The Unfinished Swan in our life. So then basically the story of the game, you're playing as a young boy. What's his name? Miles?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know why I didn't think that was correct. Who basically, his mom died and she left all these paintings behind that she just never finished. Like, she would always start paintings, never finish them. And then he is only allowed to keep one painting to take to the orphanage with him, which I thought was kind of dark thing in their opening cutscene there. And
the whole thing was dark.
Yeah, he takes the unfinished swan. And then, like, one night he wakes up and there are like swan footprints on the ground. He follows them through this door that has never been there before. And then he finds himself in the world of the game. So basically the gameplay, it revolves around paint. When you first start the game, you are literally in a white void. All you can do is, like, the only interaction you have with anything is to throw paint, and you splat it around and you realize, oh, you're standing in a room, you're standing in an environment, but there's nothing there. You have to paint it out to see where you're going. And as you get farther in the game, the more of the game actually becomes visible, and the paint itself actually gets like kind of different uses. But yeah, that's basically the game. Noah, did you like The Unfinished Swan?
Yes, I did. I enjoyed it. I thought it was really cute. It was very short, and I think that's what, kept it in good light to me. Like, if it dragged on for too long, then I'd have issues with it. But I did end up enjoying the different puzzles they implemented with the paint in the late game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I certainly it certainly was different from what I expected. I honestly did not think you would like it, but yeah, it's different from what I expected. But I mean, I still really enjoyed it. I thought it was cool. As you said, I thought the puzzles were very unique and very interesting. Yeah, I loved it. It was a great game. I will say the only annoyance I experienced playing through The Unfinished Swan was I did get all the trophies in it because that's what I do. Is, the very first level is just straight up white, all white. The first chapter entirely is nothing but white. And what I had to do for a trophy, Noah, was you have to go through the entire first section of the game up until, if you remember quite early in the game, you're like walking and you like fall through a black hole.
Yeah.
You have to get from the beginning of the game to that point, and you can only throw 3 paintballs.
Wow.
A lot of it requires sound and very specific movements. Like I followed a step-by-step guide and a video. I had like a text guide and a video I was going back and forth between because there were slight differences in the two to kind of figure out what I was doing. It took a while. Both the text guide and the video guide recommended you play through the level multiple times, like, and kind of get familiar with it before you do it, so you kind of know what you're doing. I, of course, did not do that. And there were several times when I got lost and had to restart. But yeah, that was a challenge.
Sounds awful.
It wasn't great. It took a long time. Anyway, no, that's the Unfinished Swan. It's great. I would highly recommend it to anyone who's looking for something a little bit different and something that is, as you said, I was surprised by how short it was, because you can very much beat that game in, like, if you're just going point A to
A
point
day.
B, 3 hours, 4 hours maybe. Like, it's certainly not that long. Noah, what is our next indie bit?
Our next indie bit, we are again changing a pace around here. We are going to be talking about The Witness.
Oh, I
Yeah.
did not expect that from you.
Yeah, it's very random. I like to keep it random around here.
Yeah, that shocks me. I so many times have thought about doing The Witness for the indie bit and thought, I know Noah's gonna hate that game. He's not gonna play through it. I'm excited to
I'll
talk about
give
The
it a
Witness.
shot. That's what the indie bit's about.
I completely agree with you there. I am actually very excited to talk about The Witness with you. So don't forget, new episodes every other Monday. Rate and subscribe. Tell us if you like our show, or tell us if you don't, and tell us why. Tell your friends and enemies about the podcast. You can follow our Instagram, the Super Gamer Bros, for updates on episodes. Well, for updates on everything we do. And subscribe to our YouTube channel, Super Gamer Bros, one word, capital S, capital G, capital B, period at the end, where we upload videos every Friday and sometimes more if something comes up that we want to talk about. Our most recent video was Noah showing me for the first time the Gotham Knights Court of Owls trailer. That was before we recorded that before the delay was announced. So if we talk about the release date in that, just know that we are completely wrong. And yeah, we'll see you guys next game.
Bye.